Here are 3 skills that I think every genealogist should have when they're dealing with images on their old computer that they need for their genealogy research. If this video helps, please take a moment to like it and follow me. Let's get started. So the very first skill that everybody really needs to have when they're working with old images is the ability to zoom in on the image. So I'm zooming in on this will using just some keyboard shortcuts. Usually, depending on the program or the application, there's different ways to do this. For instance, on the tablet, you'll be using your fingers to be able to zoom in and zoom out, but that makes the text bigger and therefore easier to read. So learn how to zoom in using your computer or the software or the application to better see the letters up close. That's skill number 1. Skill number 2 is image quality. And there's a couple things that go into image quality, but if you're dealing with most programs on a Mac or a PC, even on a tablet, there's usually things you can do to adjust the image quality just to be able to read it a little bit better. And let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. This will, it looks pretty dark. And what I did when I first downloaded this document, I have another copy of it somewhere else, is I made it lighter. So on this particular program, this is Mac Preview, you can bring up this little color adjuster and sharpness and other types of settings. I press auto levels first. Sometimes that brightens it up a little bit. In this case, it didn't. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the exposure tab and basically brighten that up a little bit. And you see how much easier that is to read now. The other thing you can do is adjust the contrast. So that basically makes the differences between the white and the dark a lot greater. So you can see that that makes those letters stand out a little bit more. However, there's another negative effect. You can see that the ink actually fades in from the other page, so that made that faded ink darker too, which maybe might make things a little bit more difficult to read. So I might turn down the contrast a little bit. Sometimes image manipulation programs, they'll have a sharpness toggle, so I might sharpen them up a little bit. That can help a little bit. And of course, it's not going to instantly make all of these letters easier to read, but it's just one thing that you can do to improve the quality. And one other thing I want to say about image quality, if the size of the image is too small or the resolution is not big enough, this messing around with the image quality may not be enough, just because there's just not enough data for you to, for instance, to zoom in or to even do something like adjust the brightness or adjust the sharpness, because it'll be very pixelated and hard to read anyway. So just make sure that when you're downloading an image like this, if there are options to choose a different image size, try to choose something that's a little bit larger than a little bit smaller. And for instance, if you're on the Library of Congress website, Library of Congress does give you options for different quality sizes, like different file sizes. Choose something that's, I'd say at least 500 kilobytes and maybe even 1 or 2 megabytes in size. And this will be a couple thousand pixels on the longest edge. It doesn't have to be the gigantic highest quality scan, but just something that's big enough where you can zoom in and adjust the brightness and contrast and actually see a difference. Okay, so that's the second method that I advise, is to adjust the image quality. And then finally, the other really important thing to do with images like this is to rotate them. And this may seem like a pretty basic thing, and maybe some people might think, well, you don't really need that. I can kind of read what that says, or I can tilt my head, 11 June 1861 or 7. But if you're able to quickly rotate something, it does make a big difference. So I'm just going to rotate this to the right. And right away, it makes it a lot easier for me to see. 11 June 1851. EST inventory. So I think this is estate inventory of the personal estate of James Smith. Okay, so that makes it a lot easier to do. And then I'm going to go back at the end, because of course now I can't read the other document because this is rotated the wrong way. So I'm going to rotate this left, and then I can read that. So learn how to do that on your device or on your computer or in the app that you're using. It'll make things a lot easier to decipher when you're dealing with documents like a will, or like this. Here's another example. This is an old 1870 census, and one thing that I always find with the U.S. censuses is they put the questions, the column headers, in a kind of at 90-degree rotation. So I'm going to need to basically rotate that to the right so I can see what these different things are. So those are my tips. If this video helped out, please take a moment to like it and follow me, and I'll see you next time.